Order, it's February the 11th, 2025, at 9 o'clock at the Public Works Building. We're going to start with the application and also
Let us pray. Almighty God, we gather in your presence this day, seeking your wisdom, guidance, and blessing. We ask that you bestow upon this council the discernment to make decisions that honor you and benefit our community. Help us to serve with humility, integrity, and compassion, placing the needs of others above our own. Grant us unity in our deliberations and the courage to stand for justice and righteousness. Bless our city employees and all its inhabitants. May your grace be upon us this day and forevermore. And this I pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we take a roll, please?
Mr. Linderman?
Here.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mayor Wolf?
Here. Father, can you sleep already?
Keep out there.
Thank you for your prayer, appreciate it. All right, everybody's looked at the minutes for approval? Every yeas and nays, everybody okay? Okay. Okay, minutes are. We're gonna just change the regular agenda just a little bit. We're gonna take item number 5, which is task order for the boat ramp. We can bring that up so that we could move on a little bit quicker and that Ms. Moore can move on to her day. So if you want to come up.
Good morning, Elizabeth Moore with Anchor CEI. Y'all have before you the proposal for the boat ramp repairs and the expansion. I don't remember exactly the last conversation we had about it, but I know that we had gone back to, it started with a boat ramp that had 3 lanes. It was decided that we wanted to go back to 2. We also looked to see if we could do an allocation of funds to do more parking improvements. But FWC said they would prefer that those improvements stay within the boat basin. So the proposal that you have before you is for the engineering, permitting, and design of both the seawall repairs in the boat basin and the boat ramp expansion. And as you know, you have grant funds from FWC to help pay for that. And then any that actually helps pay for the boat ramp. And then any funds that are left over from reducing the size of the boat ramp can then be applied to the seawall repairs. The proposal that you have includes several tasks on our part, which includes design, surveying, permitting, and inspection. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Your side of it is 96.5, and then so that leaves us with about 650 left over. We don't know if that's gonna be enough or not, or.
Well, just remember too, though, our fees are not going to come out of the grant. So our fees come out of your budget for the seawall for the boat basin repair. So
We'll still remember it remains the 750 on the grant.
was it 750 or was it 850 that was the total grant?
The grant was $850, the projected cost was $750.
And keep in mind, there's a lot of sub fees in there, surveying, geotech. That's not just all going to Anchor. That's a lot of that's going to things to pay for. Preliminary engineering, it's not under our scope.
So is that is correct, we're gonna take these fees out?
I misspoke a few minutes ago. They'll be coming out of our coffers rather than grant funds.
Which, we kind of talked about this before. We've got 850,000 in grant. Our engineering fees will not come out of that, but you had, I believe, already allocated a certain amount for the boat basin repair.
Yes.
So you can take the funds for our fees out of the boat basin repair that you already had. So it's moving money around, but you can't take it out of FWC, but you are going to be able to apply any leftover funds from the FWC grant to the boat basin repair. So then that frees up more money to go to cover our fees.
And we have in writing from FWC that we go ahead and move forward with the one ramp, and then what we have left over, we can repair the seawall.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, I think the way that I understand it is that, yes, they've given us a verbal that we can do that.
Do you
Part
have
of this,
anything in writing from them?
I think we have it in an email, is that right?
We have an email.
Yes,
and
but
the
then,
meeting.
but the other part of our proposal though is to work with them to modify the grant language, because right now the grant language, I think, still talks about the 3 ramps. So, but they have told us that they would, in writing, that they would honor this modification.
And the other thing I brought up, talked to you a little yesterday, you know, the timing. I mean, can we, time-wise, what are you really thinking before we can get it out for bid, to get this process?
I would think we should be able to have it out within 3 to 4 months. You know, the surveying has already been done. The permitting was done previously, so we'll just have to do a modification to that. So it's, the majority of it is going to be, we do still have to get geotech, but the majority of it is just going to be us recreating the design drawing. So it really shouldn't be all that much. The permitting is, as you know, is what normally takes forever. But we're hoping that we'll be able to just modify the existing permits fairly easily.
Yeah, you know, that just relates to, I know FWC said they would work with us, but it says all activities must be completed
Yes.
by June 30th, 2026. So we're very aware of that,
Yes.
and I'd like to get it done. And one thing I just know that popped up on this, correct me on this grant, he's saying 850. Where does the 986 come in? I always thought it was 950. And then this paperwork, scope of work from FWC, the maximum grant award amount is 986,831. Did I miss something?
Is that ringing bells with you, the 986?
Okay, we'll check into it.
Yeah, we can definitely get back with you on that.
I'll do some digging.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should, we have 3 sets of numbers here.
Yeah, we came in on the tail end of the grant, so we weren't involved in that part of it, so we're not as familiar, but we've definitely looked over
Yeah, I
it.
remember in the budget, I thought we had 950 written down, yeah, the boat ramp, and then I'm seeing it here in FWC's paperwork, that it's 986,831. So we can verify.
There were some funds that were originally spent on, with Dewberry, and so that might be the money, the delta there. So I don't know how much that was, but I don't think it was 100,000.
We don't know what seawall repair would be.
We had estimated, I don't think that cost estimate is in here. Originally, they had estimated around 800,000 or 900,000 for the seawall repairs. Because what you're actually doing with the seawall repair is you're actually building a new seawall in front of the existing seawall, because as you had discussed before, you know, we don't know how deep the damage goes, and that's the standard way to repair it. And then that'll also get you the new bulkhead and sidewalk.
Did you say 800,000 or 900,000 just on the seawall alone?
I believe that's correct, yes. And that's what had been discussed, I think, during your budget as of last year, but.
Yeah,
But again, we don't have a design yet, so, you know, once we get into the design of it and everybody says, you know, we need to really look at value engineering that down, of course, we're gonna do that, but, you know, I would rather tell y'all a higher number now, and then you be prepared for that, and then once we get into the design, if we have to back up and modify that a little bit, then I'd rather do it that way, than to tell you a small number and then come back in a year and tell you, oh no, it's gonna be 3 times that, so.
Yeah, I know we had budgeted what we took, was it 800,000, 6 and 2? Or was it 8 and 2? I'd have to look at that, but that was for the other repairs. We got the grant, and then we had budgeted for the other seawall repairs out of our own.
So I'm looking, I pulled the budget up real quick. It's It appears to be, we are expecting 1.7 million in grants. Boat ramp repairs is 800,000. Boat ramp expansion is 950,000. And then there was 13.5 for canal support.
Yeah, we were transferred 800 for the boat ramp repair and
From the
200 out of the canal fund,
Okay.
or 800 out of the canal fund and 200, that was another, that was for the additional repairs. But
So,
we're hoping to get some of the grant money to ease,
Right.
to use that.
obviously, we're gonna be dipping into our, boat ramp fund to do some of the repair possibilities.
So Chris, can you send this after this meeting, the actual numbers?
Yep.
So we can look at it.
Absolutely. And I'll include the current fund levels that we can pull from.
The only other thing I'd have to say, this is, since Elizabeth has said this is coming out, this is not coming out of grant money yet. Talk to Chris, but how are we with the lease? I mean, do we have it signed?
Yeah.
Are we good?
That's good to go.
Okay.
And that's out to additional, what, do you remember what it was?
I think it was,
36?
yeah, it was, I think it was 3 years longer than we actually needed for the grant.
Should've.
That's, you did receive that sign and back.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to go to at least 2046. July of 2046, at least, if we meet our deadline of our build process, you know, getting it built. And, so, just make sure we're on top of that.
There's a lot of communication you're gonna have with FWC because of timing.
Are you referring to just the grant itself?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. We've talked to them a lot in the last couple of months, that's no problem.
Yeah, just keep documentation so that we can get back to them. I'm sure you guys, copy Chris on all that, or?
Yeah, and we met with him last week, with Chris last week to go over projects, including this one, and we also set up at least a monthly meeting to go over projects with him prior to these meetings.
As a council, this is nothing we vote on, this is just a yay or nay to have Chris sign off to go with the engineering part of it. Is we okay?
Yeah.
Everybody okay?
Yep. I said
Yes.
I had to reach that.
Okay, we will proceed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I interrupt for just a second? We have a black Lincoln blocking the driveway down here at the end. Tag number IQA N07.
Ms. Hyman?
That's a jailable offense, isn't it?
Oh,
Thank you. All right. Do we need to wait for Jerry? Sorry, we don't wait for Jerry to get back. He probably wasn't the right person to send out there. Not that he couldn't do the job. Feel free to have some conversation amongst yourselves if you'd like.
Right next to Jerry.
You said black.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just wanted to remind everybody about the gumbo cook-off that is this Saturday. It starts at 10 o'clock. It'll be at the boat ramp. We'll have gumbo and Brunswick stew, hot dogs, sausage dogs, baked items. There'll be a 50-50 raffle. We will have an ATM machine this year, so everything is on a cash ticket basis, but the ATM machine will be there. And we'll also have live music.
Don't forget the beer and wine.
And the beer and wine.
You have a question, sir?
Yeah, the work on our sand dune, any quick update on that? What, timeline?
Timeline from the last I heard was the end of March, beginning of February, or April. That's the latest. That could change though, they're moving along pretty quick.
That's massive, and they work long hours.
24/7. You must be on the water.
Close enough.
You think they could do something about those backup buttons, you know, maybe slow them down or something? Turn them on.
Lying down after midnight.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we're back in order here, we go. You disappeared.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, we're gonna move on to the regular agenda. And the first item that is on the list is the 2902. And Laura, it's you.
Good morning.
This is Bob. All right, so again, anyone having a conversation with the applicant would need to disclose that
Quasi,
in a quasi-judicial proceeding. And then the clerk will need to swear in anyone who is going to testify.
all right, just one. Anybody else? Mr. Moore?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Good morning. This is an application for a development order for 2902 US Highway 98. The parcel is approximately half an acre, and it includes a building that is currently under construction on the east side. The parcel is at the intersection of North 30th Street and Highway 98. The request is to develop approximately 4,500 square feet of floor area with an additional 1,500 square feet of rooftop deck. It'll include about 1,800 square feet of office space and about 2,700 square feet of residential, which will be on the second floor. We, just as an FYI, the business that's under construction on the east side is a restaurant. We have reviewed the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations accordingly, and this actually went before the P&Z in January and February as we worked through some of the issues that were brought up in the review. We find that the request meets the requirements of the comprehensive plan and the land development regulation with a couple recommendations. Knowing that 30th Street is a one-way north, we request that the motion to approve include, as the planning P&Z recommended, proper signage and directional arrows as you're coming out of their parking lot to go north on 30th to exit the property, and to stipulate in the notes of the site plan that the structural height will not be greater than 32 feet, which is the requirement of the zoning that the parcel is located in. And with that, the P&Z recommended approval with unanimous vote with those two conditions.
Okay. Then move the public, any public comments? Close the public. Move to the table.
I had one question. I noticed you said this, you know, the directional flow errors. But I take it that all the traffic's gonna flow through the shopping center?
Yes, because it's a one-way street. They'll come in on 30th, come into the site, and when they egress, they'll come out of the site and have to come north and go
Yeah, it's not.
around.
Is
There'll
that
be a lot of
signage,
traffic.
is that signage a responsibility of the city?
No, we're asking him to signage his property and some directional arrows on his site.
Laura, I've got a question. So, and maybe it's for the developer. So it looks like, just looking at this diagram, the picture, that the traffic could go east or west in front of the restaurant and go back and forth from between 30th and 29th. Is that not the case?
Would you like to come and say anything? This is Mr. Moore, the applicant.
Is there something blocking that, Mr. Moore?
It's just a pad, but and there is something blocking that, the front porch, or patio of the old Beach Pizza
okay.
is right away there, so
So,
it's not a through pad.
so what is the parking requirement for, because this includes the restaurant and then the new building, correct?
So yes, so we're evaluating just that portion of the site that's under the request, which is not the full 0.53 acres. So the parking analysis was conducted for this building, not with the pizza included.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to, so is that restaurant included in this development?
No, it's separate. It's just, the parcels were not combined, it's one parcel.
Okay, I got it. It's the way you have this diagram. It looks like it
Yes.
includes everything.
Because that's the parcel. But the applicant started the development process for the restaurant when we still had the availability to redevelop post-storm. So that was not considered as part of
So
this.
I take it that was the city administrator's authority to approve that?
That, we had an ordinance actually that had a sunset date that they could apply under,
Okay,
which he did.
all right. Okay, thank you.
I've got one that I asked you about just a while ago.
Yes. The sidewalk?
Yes.
So the sidewalk is on the right-of-way, and Mr. Moore has some information from FDOT also that in regards to that sidewalk.
On 30th Street.
Oh, on 30th Street.
Not 98th, but on 30th.
Yes, we didn't, he does not have, and we did not require a sidewalk on 30th Street.
No sidewalk on 30th.
Correct. On 98, it will remain as is.
Question, on the site layout, you know, I see the building where it sits, I see the parking layout. So this area in front that's up by the highway that says proposed pavers, is there any, what is that used for?
Great question, thank you. Again, my name is Rick Moore, I'm a Mexico Beach resident, I'm a 34th Street guy, I've been here about 20 years, and my wife and I are on a glide path to make this our permanent home. That direct answer to the question, what we hope to do there is to have outdoor seating for the restaurant. If we can come back before you with another request, it might be a place where we would have some pop-up retail where there would be rentals for what you see for bike or chair bicycle rental, but just something that would present to 98 that would allow for some kind of commercial interaction. If we can get through a process where we could place a food truck on that paver area and deliver food services out, but it would be just kind of an organized gathering space, whether it's got tables, whether it's got some pop-up retail, or whether it has a potential for a food truck installation.
So my question for that too is, you know, Beach Pizza was grandfathered in, or here it's not Beach Pizza.
It's whatever.
Building was
That's whatever.
grandfathered, so
It's a
the
remodel.
parking
It's a
is
remodel.
directly off of
98
98.
and 29
So the building that there was before on that corner,
on the,
30th Street
yes, sir,
corner,
it's gone.
is gone.
Yes, sir.
But they were allowed to just come off. Are we eliminating that in the future of allowing parking up front directly off of the highway?
I haven't heard any discussion about elimination of that parking. I would hope we would be able to continue to use the historical.
Not the beach, not in front of that, not in front of the
Understood.
29th, in front of this,
Right.
where you got proposed gravel.
Yeah, it was parking you talking about this area
Yes, sir.
out here?
That and yes.
This
Just
area?
well, no, out where you're talking about, on the highway.
On 98 in front of this?
An
Yeah.
extension going west.
Yes, in front of that.
Yes. So there is existing parking there. It was there before the storm. It's there today. We would hope to be able to make gainful use of that parking on a continuing basis. I mean, it was there, the two little buildings that were there before the internet cafe, the little art coffee shop, the little,
Yeah, that's just gone now.
yeah, it's gone now, but that parking was there before and it just continued to be there. So,
And we talked about this before, I mean, that parking in front of there is could be gone if they ever go with the path and all that
It's
other stuff,
DOT's, it's DOT's property,
Right.
and we've been in discussion with Alan Van from the project manager for DOT to talk about the potential for a donation of additional width there so that they could expand the existing sidewalk without impeding on the existing parking that was there. Have had some favorable discussions. His email to me was that the final design of that road starts, or that sidewalk starts in 2026. So by the time you design, permit, and construct, I'm gonna make a guess that it may be 27 before there's actual construction, maybe 28, but it's not something that is about to happen tomorrow, but we are in discussions with DOT in their public participation process.
It's there, it's been historically an easement, people park there, you're not adding it to the residence parking or anything
Nope, we
like
aren't
that.
relying on it for any of this, the residential portion, and the residential portion actually has some extra parking. We may have a requirement for 8 spaces, and we're building 16. I mean, we're building something that is, I can go back and pull your exact numbers out, but we're building more parking on this internal lot than is required by the proposed building, which really was our major focus. We wanted to get started with building what seems like a fairly simple building, a couple thousand square feet on the ground floor, a couple thousand square feet above it, a little rooftop, a single apartment above, and to be able to apply for that building permit, this is one of the bases that we had to touch.
Any way that we could maybe put a footnote in there to have the signage that you're gonna place approved by the city?
That'd be fine.
Before you
We'd
do that?
stipulate to that. We think it's a great comment. I wish we'd had it on our original plans. It's a very good comment.
If we can just get a drawing and then get it approved, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? I have one more. Anybody else?
In the actual office space itself, what type of business will that be?
It's a great question. So I'm a civil engineer, own a civil engineering survey company. And one of the concepts is that we would bring an office to Mexico Beach. And so that's our, at least first focus would be to have a professional office in it. If that turns out to be the dumbest idea in the world, it would be able to be retail space. It's just going to be wide open with columns on the inside, but a wide open space, a couple of bathrooms in the back, and a break room. So it's going to be flexible, but the concept as we sit today is a more vast consulting office.
And then what did you just say about a food truck? Something about trying to put a food
Just
truck
that,
in
the paver strip that's out front that the commissioner was asking about, there's along the US 98 frontage, there's an additional strip of pavers right there that we could use for either overflow outdoor dining or pop-up retail. There was, in the Seaside and seeing the guys that have the tents that be able to sell out of, or a little kiosk to be able to rent bikes out of. And if not that, potentially food trucks that would be able to be there for food service, right, that present to the sidewalk that parallels 98.
So it seems like that would complicate that whole area a lot more. I mean, the traffic flow.
I think so. I think
that little tight little area.
the attraction to be in there is the concentration of that kind of activity in the central business district. Is kind of the way we look at that piece of property. Everything in there is basically the retail center of town, with a new grocery, the hardware store, Mango's, restaurant, an office building. It will definitely seem like the energy of being a small, walkable downtown area is the direction that piece of property or that little section of Mexico Beach is growing up.
Marty, what would your thoughts be on the traffic flow with this additional, possibly a food truck and just additional, what are your thoughts on that congestion right up in there? How would that flow? Would you have safety concerns about that?
I haven't looked at all the plans and everything, nobody's asked me about it till this point.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it and see. I could give you an answer later, but right now I have not looked at it and
Okay.
saw the flow or anything else.
You know, Mr. Moore, I'm,
Yes, sir.
oh, sorry, do you need anything else? I'm still a little hung up on this front,
Okay.
because, you know, you've redeveloped the property, you're going with a new concept, you've got your off-street parking, which is great, you know, and you haven't been in these meetings, but our Highway 98 corridor and coming in and out of businesses and right off the highway it's been, it was something we've been working towards addressing.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, the building that was there is not there. So I take it, I look at that as the grandfather. It's kind of been
I don't disagree.
taken out of the,
I don't disagree with that. We didn't attempt to declare any access to grandfathering in our proposal.
no, I see that, but I mean, obviously you've thought ahead, you know, about your property. And,
How do you, right.
yeah, I would too. I mean, you've got this paper section and you've discussed food trucks. I mean, I guess I'm okay with what's being brought to the table, but you know, in a future discussion, this front piece is gonna require more attention.
Understood. I'd be happy to come back with a separate submittal before any food trucks are placed, before we got
Okay.
even into that, as a separate approval. We're kind of not, it's not a catch-22, but there is an imperative in the planning process that we show all of the proposed improvements, paving and otherwise, so that the stormwater management design is sure to accommodate what is needed at build-out. So some things we had to advance in discussion earlier than we were ready for, because we had to go back and answer the larger question of kind of the master plan. How's everything gonna, you know, how much pavement are you putting down? Do you meet the impervious requirements when you do put it down? So we're in that zone. But I would be happy at your discretion, or you can tell me it's a condition of approval, to come back before we put any kind of,
Well, yeah, I just wanted to make a point of clarification that anything temporary that is being suggested at the front is not being approved by this
No.
development order.
Right.
So that, if something temporary were to occur up there, he would still need to come back and ask for approval.
So I have a concern, and I'm not sure how to mitigate it, with the traffic will be going one way up 30th Street behind the current Ace Hardware store, which is a street, in their warehouse area. And that's kind of a congested area that's used by Ace for delivery, moving lumber out. Is there any way to, I know it's a street, is there any way to mitigate that somehow?
The one way it is the one way.
Yeah, they can't, there's no way they can go across the street and go forward in front of the Ace Hardware store, because that would create traffic pulls in there, into Ace in that area. So that's the one area that I kind of worry about, because it gets very congested in there with the traffic between the trucks and the warehouse area.
Yeah, right there in front where he loads into his warehouse.
Yeah, and so I don't have any suggestions, but it's something we're gonna have to be cognizant of, because that could lead to with that business there, you know, a lot of traffic. There's no other way to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, it is the only way right now. I don't know with the future of Sweetwater, when all that's opened up back through there should be more,
some other pathways.
some other ways to go further back and exit.
So when the other stores were there, was it the same traffic pattern? It was
Yes.
back behind there? Okay.
We could probably talk to Ace Hardware, and they could probably unload a lot. They have a lot of land right there behind, they rent St. Joe County to unload trucks. If we would approach them, I think,
Yeah.
they'd work with us and let that flow just traffic if somebody asked.
And our approach, and maybe it'll change, I don't think it will, is that we'd like to be able to share parking. We don't want to take anybody's parking, but if overflow parking is needed, I mean, we don't feel that there's any problem with cross parking. If somebody needed overflow, or if Ace needed to pull off to a side to unload, I mean, it is a very positive relationship out there as far as what's going on. It's not people putting up signs that says, "We'll tow it if you park in the wrong spot." So it's intended to be very collaborative and cooperative. And I think that total parking space count, if you include the US 98 plus what we're building, plus what's available on 30th and 29th Street, is it's less than, but it's a majority portion of the total parking that's available inside the commercial center over there. So I think we're complementing an abundance of parking that could be used by the community.
I think this conversation is kind of flowing into some other stuff that we know that's coming.
Understood.
Be it, Sweetwater and some things like that. That overall area is gonna get very congested, and there's probably Jerry's suggestion is probably a good starting point, move their loading from the front to the back. Opens up that area, but we're gonna have to have some options.
And there's no plan for parking on 30th Street by your business?
There's existing 90-degree parking on 30th Street that is gravel parking with bumper stops along a section right here that is used by some Ace folks, some shopping center folks. We don't have any folks right now, but there are existing probably 3 or 4 spaces that exist right along here.
Is that
And
city
we aren't
right away, or is
eliminating
that-
those with our proposal.
Talking about this is.
Yeah, that's the Ace
It's
Hardware.
technically-
No, you're talking about the parking on the Ace Hardware side?
No, sir,
he's
on
talking about-
our side.
He's talking about down here.
On the storage side.
So, is that your property, or is that the street right away?
Oh, this is.
It's a combination. We have to exit the street right away to get onto the property, but it's on our property accessed from the street right away. And I don't know, it's not wholly on our property, but I think there's a parking that's right there.
Yeah, that's the lot line.
Yeah, that's gonna get really congested.
Understood.
Well, you're not proposing using that currently. That's kind of
It's
still
just
down
there.
the road, it's just there.
It's just there, yes, sir. We aren't relying on it for any of our proposed parking for our building.
So, I would wanna see that as no parking, just based on the way traffic comes in there and goes down that street, and they already have parking on the Ace side, and if you put more parking to back out into that road as people come down it, I think that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah, I think that'll come up when we talk about the front too, all that parking in general. I mean, cause the parking requirements, what is it, 10 by
10 by 20, yes, sir.
But when you have, where that's at, you're gonna have vehicles backing into the street as people turn off Highway 98, is what it looks like to me, trying to get in, either go up 30th Street or to turn in front of Ace Hardware.
Yeah, the same thing on 30th Street, backing out.
There's some parking that happens there today, but no, we don't have any activity that's driving that parking, but there is some utility of that parking. And it may be worth a larger conversation with the business owners. I know there's other experts that are worried about traffic flow, but something about the availability of that parking as an overflow may be a positive for the folks in the city center.
Yeah, if you just get a diagram of these signs and ins and outs.
Yeah.
And then something to the city administrator, I think the council ought to look at it, and, I think Mr. Linderman brings up a good point, there may be a possibility we wanna shut some parking down on 30th Street.
Understood. It's
You know, rather than have
your
people
prerogative.
Pulling in and pulling out, just flow through.
Okay.
Well, based on that and going to the development, I have one other question, it's more of an education for me than anybody else, I'm just curious. And it's more of a structure, might not be able to answer, I'll have to go to EPCI or something. The 32 feet to rooftop, and then you have a rooftop that has a deck on it. So is that measurement taken from the roof floor, or is it taken from the height of the fence that's around the?
I'll tell you what I believe.
Deck.
I'll tell you what I believe. The top deck has an exit. You take an elevator up to that top deck so that you can walk out, and there's a shed roof. This shed roof over the top of the elevator shaft. I think that the measurement is taken from the mean height, which is the middle of that shed roof line, down to the actual to the first floor.
So that will be equal to the, patio cover you have there? Is that
I
what
think
you
so,
said?
I don't know the exact height, but it's just, it's open, rods that would let you put a shade sail up there for shading is all that is. That's not a hard, this section's not a hard roof, this is open trellis, basically. This, I think that measurement is taken from the mean of the slope down to the bottom and meets, according to the architects, meets
And
the
that would
32
meet
foot
the-
requirement. The
The
32.
wood on the other side there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just curiosity question. With that said, is there a motion to approve or not?
I'm ready to make a motion that we approve the development order at 2902 Highway 98 with the stipulations that the developer place the directional arrows and signage for the egress and stipulate the plans limit the structural height to 32 feet.
And that the signage have the prior approval of the city.
And the signage have the prior approval.
Yeah, I know you've made your motion, but it just seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of further discussion. Is this something we can table until we get more answers? I just think it's
Well, look, you got a
concerning.
motion on
Let's
the
just,
table.
yeah, I'm sorry. We do have a motion, we need to complete that motion, so do we have a second for that motion?
I second.
Let me take a look.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
No,
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. Moving on to ordinance 849. Ms. Orr, you up again?
Yes, this is the second reading of ordinance 849 regarding amendments to the land development code, specifically the setbacks as indicated in section 2.02.02, and then some definitions that are located later in the code in section 3.00.04 and section 6.01.00. And this regulation amendment has been through the P&Z. It has been to you for you for first reading. The only change that we made from the first reading to this reading was the language that on the bottom of page 2 of the exhibit, where we're talking about the setbacks and allowing building services equipment to be located within the setback as requested by at the last meeting to be included. So otherwise, it's the same as we had at the first reading.
Yeah, it's been to the council a couple different times, right?
Yes.
Adam, you had that last one?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess, we need a second reading. I have a motion for a second reading.
Or do we leave it open to?
We can.
You've got that
After
after
we
the
read it.
motion.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so I make a motion to read ordinance 849 by title only.
second.
Can we take the roll, please?
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes,
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes.
Ordinance 849. An ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, amending the city's land development code to modify all or certain portions of sections 2.02.02, 2.02.07, 3.00.04, and 6.01.00 to amend and clarify setbacks in a townhome land use zoning district, providing for a repealer, severability, correction of Scrivener's errors, local construction and codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. We're open ordinance 849 to the public. Any public questions? Close it to the public. Any discussion at the table? Look for a motion to approve or deny ordinance 849.
So make a motion to approve ordinance 849.
I'll second it.
Can we take a roll, please?
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. We're moving on to a budget amendment. Mr. Truitt.
The original request was to transfer funds from water and sewer to Public Works. I'm actually going to request that we table this ordinance. Is that the appropriate course of action on a second read? The reason being, we found out that the trucks that we were looking at actually increased in price, and this is the numbers no longer work.
Then if you don't want to recommend a second reading, then you would ask them to have a motion to table.
Okay, that'll be my request.
Okay, do we have a motion to table it based on the city administrator's input today?
I'll make a motion to table for the discussion on ordinance 850
Yes, ma'am.
Until,
until,
you want to put a date?
No set date. We have to now go back out to bid.
Okay.
second.
All right, a second.
Let me take the roll, please.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. Moving on to ordinance 851. First reading of the beach dunes protection. Do I have a motion to read it?
I'll make a motion to read ordinance 851.
Quick title only.
No, first reading.
Oh, okay.
Have a second?
Second.
Tammy, take the roll, please.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes.
Ordinance 851. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, adding Chapter 99 of the City of Mexico Beach Code to be entitled Beach and Dune Protection, relating to protection of the city's beaches and dunes, establishing the purpose and intent of the article, creating definitions, prohibiting certain activities in order to protect the city's dune system, identify permitted activities, and providing for enforcement and penalties, and providing for repealer, codification, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Good, move to open to the public. Anybody want to speak?
Good morning,
Good morning.
Elaine Hardwick. First, let me say I support the protection of the dunes. I support, I know the city's not in charge of the beach restoration project, but I support that as well. That project's been planning for 7 years. But only until January 8th of this year did I get a letter from the beach restoration project telling me how the building up of the dunes was going to impact my boardwalk. That I have a DEP permit from the state of Florida. It's going to cover up the end of my boardwalk. I'm actually meeting with an engineer this afternoon to physically show me how much of my boardwalk is going to be covered. But if this ordinance doesn't have any reference to how it protects beach owners on the beach that already have permits for boardwalk, in other words, if I can't walk on the dune and the dune covers the end of my boardwalk is like a dead end. I can't get to the water. So I would ask that in this ordinance there's some language that stipulates how this impacts homeowners that have beachfront property with boardwalks. And I'll let you know how this meeting goes, but, you know, they've shown me maps, but, you know, until I see how high it's gonna go and how much it's gonna impact, I mean, not until January did they send a letter stating it's gonna impact the boardwalk.
Ms. Harwick, I know you got with Kimberly and spoke to her. She
Yes.
did say, how far does your boardwalk extend over the dunes? Are you trying to find that out?
It goes pretty far. In fact, when it was built, I called Lance, who worked with me on this, and I said, I think they built it too far. It's like, how far can it go? And he's like, no, that's exactly what the DEP wants. The DEP wants it out as far as it can go. So I was like, okay, but some of the, Mother Nature has covered up some of the end of the boardwalk, but now the MRD associates with the beach restoration project are saying they're gonna cover up more of my boardwalk. I don't know how much more until I meet with them this afternoon.
Wasn't there a stipulation that if you had railing on the side,
Yes,
that it would not be covered?
yes. So this project that has been in planning for 7 years, sent me this letter January the 8th, and they gave me 2 weeks to either remove the boardwalk or put railings up. So the lack of communication has been a little disheartening. I would just say that this ordinance on dune protection needs to understand, the left hand and the right hand need to work together, understand how this is going to impact each other. But again, I support protecting the dunes. I just don't want to prohibit me being allowed to walk over when I have a permit for a boardwalk.
I'm trying to understand the railing side of it. Is there a specified size that the railing needs to be, or thickness, or anything like that?
It just says structures with railings will not have sand placed directly on them. Instead, sand will be piled on either side of the structure.
Okay, so based on that, if you just ran a rope down from one end to the other with some boards?
That's some of my questions this afternoon when I meet with them.
So I think we do need to look at, for all owners on the beachfront. It's just like our dune walkovers. They should still have that, some sort of little access. I mean, it's dune protection, and that's what we want.
The
For
ordinance-
people straying all out in the.
If I may.
Right. The ordinance, the way it's written right now, does reference beach entrance, city beach entrances, but there's no reference to private boardwalks.
No, I think it does.
I can clarify this. There's two things, I'll clarify what the question actually, there's two things that the city council needs to determine today with this ordinance. As it's written right now, it's based on the LDC's definition of protected area, which is only 8th Street to the county line. It doesn't cover anything from 8th Street up towards the west. It does allow the city to designate walkovers. It doesn't have any specific criteria for those walkovers. So part of the permit process, or for those that already have a dune walkover, we can designate that as a walkover, and then that would satisfy the ordinance.
So Chris,
Well, I think that protects you. I mean, she just said it's from 8, and I didn't catch that, but from 8 to the county line.
And if the council chooses to extend that west, outside of the current protection zone, then you would have that designated walkover part.
Okay. Tim, go ahead.
so this is to Tim and Chris. It looks like section 99-5, permitted activities, vaguely talks about permitting dune crossovers or other designated beach access points. So do we need to elaborate on that? Does that include the beach, the private beach walkovers? Was that the intent of that statement when you drafted this?
Yeah, it would be to allow the walkovers, but they'd have to be permitted. That's correct.
Mhm.
You couldn't just go build one.
So what would you recommend? Can we solve this problem to allow private permitted, DEP permitted beach? And they would have to go to the city too, I think, Chris, is that what you told me?
Yes, but as of right now, as the ordinance sits, no residences are impacted. It's just from the 8th Street south, which is our beach.
Right.
If you choose to extend it west, then yes.
Yeah, if you look at the scope of the ordinance, what I did was go into your code. You all in ordinance 4.03.04 Charlie, subsection of that, you have previously identified the beach and dune protection zone. And so that's already identified by the ordinance, and so, because you've already identified that zone, that's what I made this apply to.
Yeah, but that only goes from Gulf County line to 8th Street.
That's correct.
That's correct?
And seaward of the coastal construction control line.
Okay, so that and, what does that mean?
Well, the state has designated a line along the beach of beyond which there can be no construction.
And that line varies, it's, so,
And that's where you go to DEP and get the permit for the walk, which she did.
She did.
yeah. What I'm trying to figure out here is that sufficient enough to include, to allow the private beach walkovers if permitted by DEP?
Yes.
Is that, or is that too vague? That line is right on the beach some places and up on to 98, I believe, in some other places. So is that, or should we just simplify it and make it so that it's dune walkovers, doesn't have to be connected with that line?
Well, again, that line's what you've defined in your ordinance.
Right, that's what I'm questioning. Should we modify this so it's simpler to
Let me ask
understand?
a question. Chris, have we had any other calls about the dune walkovers other than this?
I've had 2 additional calls.
Okay, and
concerning
how were they resolved?
They went, I directed them to Kimberly at the CDC for further discussion. She's controlling the project.
Once again, not to get straight, I think this ordinance, we can move forward with this ordinance because it's from 8th Street to the Gulf County line.
Correct.
It doesn't affect the homeowners.
Correct.
So she's, the homeowners are still allowed to go to the DEP process and get.
But the DEP process is not protecting them from the renourishment project.
Correct.
But we're not limiting them from traversing over that part of the dune. We're not saying they can't, we're not saying Ms. Hurley can't walk down another boardwalk and go over that dune. What we're saying is from 8th Street to the
No, she
end of the
could,
line.
but she'd have to climb a 4-foot wall to go over it.
So I think to kind of help guide the discussion, I have 2 questions for the council. The first is, are you good with only doing 8th Street to the county line, or do you want to extend it to the entire beach?
Well, you said and.
If
There's an and in there though, right? It's not
That's
just.
correct. It's the latitudinal, if you want to think of it that way, width, but then it's seaward of that width. So seaward of the coastal construction control line.
Right, so,
That's how you define your protection zone.
so Chris, 8th Street isn't the stopping point. From 8th Street west is the coastal construction line?
No.
Okay.
You're misinterpreting the end. So you've got the width of it from 8th Street to the city limits. And then you've got where it is within that width being seaward of the coastal construction control.
Up to 8th Street.
From 8th Street to the city limits. That's correct.
so, I would again ask, does the council want to go with just that portion that's been previously defined as a protection zone, or do you want to extend it to the entire beach? And then, if you want to extend it to the entire beach, then does the council want to do this approval process so that we can allow private homeowners to have their dune walkovers?
Have their dune walkers, would they walk through or walk over?
It'd have to be over unless they have the existing walkway with it.
Right now, there's on the table is the renourishment program will not just build the dunes over top of the walkover.
Correct.
They'll take and part it, which I think that's the way it should be, if there's a railing.
Correct.
So I think forcing the railing would be a better option than,
We're trying to solve 2 problems.
Yes. So let's talk about the first question. The first question is, do we want to extend the dune protection west of 8th Street? I think that's the question.
Correct, that's question number one.
And I would recommend, yes, we do, because we want to protect all of the beach walkovers. We have a lot of problems near Sunset Park, the hotels, and at some point near when the pier gets back. So I believe we should extend this protection all the way to our beach property limit that we can, which I'm not sure where that is because of St. Joe's.
Yeah, and be careful, because the way you've defined it in your current ordinance says the beach and dune protection zone boundaries encompass beaches and dunes designated preservation on the future land use map of the comprehensive
Okay.
plan. Preservation designation encompasses land south of US 98 between 8th Street and the eastern city limit, and land seaward of the coastal construction control line. And then it says, the city shall redefine its preservation designation upon any change to the boundaries of the CCCF.
So just what you brought up a good point. So if you look at that map on the wall, that's not the only beach area that's designated preservation. It starts, I'm not sure where, 36th Street or so, you see the brown strip, goes all the way to Canal. I believe that's also preservation, beach preservation.
I don't have your comp plan.
By the land development code. Yeah, it's in the comp plan, I don't have a copy here yet. So, I'm suggesting, and maybe we gotta look at the wording, that we protect the entire stretch from Gulf County to, the city limit west. And if that requires modifying the preservation or including that, I'm not sure what the language should be, but I think we should protect the dunes the entire length of the city's beach.
Okay, the entire length and of what is designated as preservation, is that what you're?
I'm also including the non-preservation areas. There's only, and I don't know why they're not designated preservation.
I don't know.
I don't know either, yeah.
This is your,
This was the comp plan, I understand. In the comp plan, we have two major areas designated as beach conservation. That strip, as you look at that, it's, I guess it's 8th Street to the Gulf County line. And then you can see the other designation. That is beach, if you look at that, it is beach preservation also. It goes to the west.
I just pulled up our beach and dune protection zone.
Yeah, it's gonna be in one of the maps in the comp plan that shows it.
As the language describes it, it is exactly what we have. It's just the 8th Street to,
Can you pull up one of the maps that shows there's a,
we have that in code. Yeah, I know that's.
So Mr. Linderman, if you were to want to protect more than just what is currently in your beach and dune preservation zone, then we would also need to modify that section of 4.03.04, which would be in it, need to be modified to change that language in there also.
well, it's clear to me, you probably need to do some more research, because, as you look at this, you probably need to go back and look at that map and see what is designated as beach conservation, because I believe it includes more than just that area.
Look, there's a suggestion on the table to
It is, it's just
protect.
loaded right.
Can I have your attention here, please? Thank you, guys. We're gonna sit here and go through this thing all day. I think it's obviously something that's not gonna be settled here at the table. I believe that we should, probably get the information that we need that would support protecting the city all the way across, number one. And number two, we need to address the individual residents as far as how they're gonna have either a walkover or a walk-through. They can have a walk-through if they put up railing. Are we suggesting that they have a walk-over if they don't? We need to get those answers.
What we gonna do without walk? what we're gonna do. They got one of ours covered now. They gonna separate it, or we gonna build over?
From what I understand from the street, you're on the CDC, from the street, those would be open. From each street.
I don't think that's clear. I think there's.
From 8th Street.
No, I think, we're talking about the access points. I think there's been some disagreement on which access points are gonna remain open, that they're filling in and allowed. And as far as I know, Mr. Smith, our wooden walkovers, they walk over the beach up to the base of the dune on the street side. I don't believe any of them goes over the dune right now, so they shouldn't be affected by this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know, there's a lot of information.
Okay, we have you on CDC for a reason. Here's how I might be a little bit blunt, I'm sorry, but this is their project, but it's our city, okay? And we have to sit down and make sure they're either gonna do it or not. We shouldn't be in the clouds about this at all. Set something up with Kimberly and we'll meet with her and start from there. You guys can get and start getting the information and Tim, if you work with, maybe with the attorney on getting the legal side as far as can we protect the whole city. And we'll get the other council people involved in
Yeah, I think the big questions for Kimberly are the people that are doing, however it's written, because our walkovers have railings. So this is the first, that's automatically should kick us into having them open. But I've heard many times at this table that it's just gonna be a solid
So
dune.
I will go back, as the mayor's asked and talk to the CDC. But I can tell you, my understanding currently, and I'll verify this, is our walkovers, there's like 13 of them, are not being affected because they all stop at the foot of the dune on the highway side. It's only those that go over the dune and beyond to the ocean sides, as Ms. Hardwick's does, some of the civilians. And the CDC and the county plan was to issue a notice to all those owners of those private walkovers, and they had the choice of either removing them and then putting them back later over the dune, how it was setting, or if they wanted to leave them in place or couldn't move them, that they would cover them and then they could rebuild. That was what they stated to us. I will go back and clarify that. I don't know if a rope railing constitutes a railing, but I'll certainly talk to them about that. And we also need to see what the DEP, FWC says specifically. If a railing, can they go through the dune, or does it have to be on top? I don't know if they make a difference between that, so we can find that out. I will tell you, and this was briefed to us by the CDC, by Kimberly, that their intent was to only allow 1 or 2 emergency access points. I know that Chris has been working with the CDC, or trying to work with the CDC to get that, to get more access points permitted. And we'll clarify that and see where we're at, and I'll come back in our next council meeting. Chris and I will update you, and I'll talk with Tim in the meantime.
I just have one question. Ms. Hart, you're the only one here that, I know the answer, but your boardwalk does end at your property line, right?
No.
It goes further?
Yes, yes.
It goes past your property?
Yes, way past it.
Yeah, and that's would be city beach, right? But they,
That's what the DEP permit
That's it.
yeah,
designed.
okay.
There's only, I believe, on the west side, there's only 3 properties that are private property, right, to the beach?
Correct.
The rest of them are all Mexico Beach.
I don't believe there's any on the west side. They're all.
There's 2 of them.
We're talking about the west side of the canal. Immediately to the west, there are 3 residential plots, and then the only other privately owned section of the beach is in front of the annex.
All right. Can I ask, can we get a motion to table this? I would suggest we maybe the week of the 17th, I don't know how everybody's time is, but give us the rest of this week, and maybe if we can get together somewhere on the 19th or the 20th, a Wednesday or a Thursday, and just have a special meeting just based on this?
Sure.
Is there a possibility we can do that?
I can.
19, 20, somewhere in
I
there?
think that'll work.
Okay. All right, so we'll do our work this week, and then Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll try to set something up for the 19th or 20th, just to have the discussion on this alone.
We need to, I believe we need to get DEP not involved, but ask them what we can and can't do, because I think that's gonna allow it, and the nourishment, that's where it's gonna fall.
That's fair. We have a motion?
Make a motion. Make a motion that we table it.
You, I
You
say,
made a motion.
whatever, I just did.
Second.
You got that? Somebody make a motion there?
Make the motion, we table beach and dune protection, ordinance 851.
Okay.
I second it.
We take a roll, please.
Mr. Wonderman?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes, thank you. All right, we already did the boat ramp. We'll move to agreement for auditing services for James Moore. Maybe Chris Truitt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. James Moore is the auditing company that we've been using to get us caught back up on the financial audits. We have an engagement letter ready to be signed for the next 5 years. Upon recommendation of the attorney, we removed renewal clauses, which will force us to do the RFP process at the end of this current contract agreement. Our historical price in 2023 was $33,000 for their services. Starting for the year ending September 30th, 24, that price goes up to $45,000 and then increases $2,500 per year after that through the end of 2028. So my recommendation is to approve the agreement. James Moore has done a phenomenal job. They already know our data, our systems, and our people. They're ready to start the audit by the end of March, and we'll have it completed in June.
We run our year 23, 24.
Correct.
Are they running this contract as 24, 25, or how are they running it?
They run it for the year ending. So, for example, the last year of this will be the year ending September 30th of 2028. So for us, that's 27, 28. They have the same dates.
Okay, so they're at 33,000 on their last audit.
Correct.
Is that true?
Correct.
Paid and done.
Yes.
Okay. So then they came to us and we asked, that was the end of their contract.
Correct.
So then they gave us a new contract on, I think it was in December of 2024, with a 37% increase.
Correct.
I had some thoughts on that too, since we have our own financial director now. Is he doing a lot of the legwork, setting up a lot of stuff that would eliminate a lot of the time in the past that James Moore would have had to do to prepare? You know, everything's in a better shape now, so it should be less work on his part. So I do have issues with it jumping up 22,000 from 2023 to 2028, when we have our own financial person in place. That seems like, Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
I have seen a preliminary request sheet from them, and the majority of the stuff should be able to be attained by either myself or the staff to submit to them. I have not actually been able to speak with them about the increase in the price. I do have a call into Hillary, because we were talking about something else in the engagement letter as well, and that is in my notes to communicate with her and just ask her with the
with the immediate increase and then the lesser increases in the year throughout, and to explain why their tier pricing is that way.
Yeah, the year after is 5% for 4 years.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yes.
But jumping from 24 to 25 for us is gonna be 37% increase. And do we have to do a 4-year contract with them?
Short answer is no. We could do a year.
That would be my wonder, you know, so we finished they've done 23 for us. And they have not done any work on 24.
Correct.
Going forward.
Correct.
They have not.
Not
So
do
we
anything until.
we just brought him in. We do need oversight, obviously, until we get everything, get it rolling, make sure this is gonna work. So can we, can we go to like just do a 1-year
Yeah.
extension?
I think, yeah, you make a good point, Jason, but I think what's scared, not scared me, but I'm wondering, we've taken, and our audits for the first time in 4 years, this is gonna be the first time we get our audit done on time in 4 years.
No.
Okay, so knock on wood that's gonna happen. We're gonna get an engagement letter here after we make this approval. We get an engagement letter. But I kinda agree with Jason. I think we ought to engage for 1 year. I don't like the 4 years because I don't think they were nice to us going from 23 to 24, 37%.
And should in that same conversation, I mean, we wanna move, but have a discussion, Chris, why we went from 33, because that's the first year that we're getting the hit. So we're going from 33 to 45,000. We need to discuss that part.
Well, that's a kind of, we received this on, did we receive this on December the 18th?
That's what it said.
Yeah, that could,
Where the hell's it been?
we've been negotiating the decrease in term renewals. So they originally came back with an agreement that had an initial 5 years, and I believe it was 2 additional 5 years.
2 additional 5-year period.
And that was gonna run us a follow-up procurement.
Yeah, I think we ought to get with James Moore. This has been out there since December the 18th. Here we are in, February. Get with them, see if we can do a 1-year contract. Let them know the reason why we're doing it, because you had a 37% increase. We agree with the 5%. I believe 5% is kind of in the ballpark. 37% is not. I don't think they're being too nice to us. And I know that we're furnishing them a lot of information that they didn't get before and never had to prepare through CRI that we are paying individually.
Correct.
Also. So I would think the job would be easier working with CRI and getting that information.
And it did, I'd have to pull it up again, but our rate did decrease. I think we started the initial 5-year contract at 45, and then each year it got it decreased a little bit, and now we're going back up. So I'll get more information on that.
Does the council agree that maybe we should do a 1-year contract, or do they want to stick with the 4 years? What's?
I would just like to engage them and have them come back with, obviously, the first initial year and talk about that. And if they say we would prefer a 5-year, then we can decide when it comes back to the table. I mean, I do like the idea of the oversight, and especially the first year. I mean,
They have let us know that, once we get the engagement signed, they will send us the preliminary work papers as the information that will be needed from us. But work probably won't start until the end of March.
Right.
So we've got a little bit of leeway to negotiate or find out exactly why.
I think we could walk soft and just say, hey, we're okay with all of that. Your price increase of 37%, and 5% over the next year. We take it and say, we'll take 1 year though of that.
One thing you need to know, Mayor, is when your contract runs out, you have a statutory requirement of how you select a new auditor.
Correct.
And you have to appoint a committee, and then the committee does some things. So it's not just signing up a new auditing firm. You've got a whole process you have to go through.
Okay.
No, I'm good with their work and what's been done. We just need to catch, to get to
So
the
Tim,
disaster.
could the contract be worded that it's for a year with the option of extending it and then not have to do a committee to repick?
Sure, it can be worded that way with extensions of 1 year, but I haven't been involved in any of the discussions Chris has, so I don't know what their position is. I mean, we can certainly word it however you want.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of, is there a way to word this contract so it's 1 year with our option to extend it without having to go back and through the process of getting an auditor designated?
As long as it's in here that that's what you're doing up to the 5-year period, then that's fine. But whenever the contract technically terminates, you've got a statutory procedure of
Right.
selection of the auditor.
I'm just looking at if we go back for a year contract and we put ourselves in jeopardy of having to go back and do that. So the wording I would ask that we look at pursuing is a 1-year contract with an extension, our option to extend up to 5 years or whatever the requirement is.
Look, I think all we need to do is bring them, either get them on the phone or bring them in the office, sit them down, tell them our thoughts, tell them that we're willing to go forward with this audit because we gotta get it done. We're willing to pay what you've agreed. We'd like to talk to you a little bit more on the 4-year versus 1 year. And go from there, take it from there.
They have to agree too, that's something I think we sit here, what
Yeah.
we want to do, and what do they want to do, and that means a lot. I mean, you understand, they can't just, at the
Yeah.
end of our agreement, say, okay, thank y'all, walk out the door.
Of course
And
they
that's what we don't want to happen.
Correct.
And I think it's like Mayor said, let's get them on the phone, sit them down, talk to them, and let's get both sides of the story.
They may say this is it.
Right.
Well, I'm saying. So before we start agreeing on what we're gonna do, I think we need to get.
Are we good with that?
Just to make sure I'm understanding, I'm gonna actually reach out to them to see, number one, if we can decrease the price for next fiscal, and number two, do a 1 year with 4 1-year renewals. Is that,
Well, if they decrease the price, would you be, is from what I heard, they're comfortable with the 5% increase from year to year?
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, that part.
Tim?
So it's just that first initial that we got knocked out.
Okay.
Understood.
I'll be more than glad to sit in there with you at that time. You do that. All right. Anything else on that, or we can move on from that? Okay.
He's done a lot for the city, though, he has. He's-
Yeah, Moore's been around for a long time.
And plus, when he took this job, we was backed up a long time, so they do a good job. I believe we talked to them.
Okay, new copier, equipment, please.
We need an additional copier / printer for utility billing. The current situation is we only have one printer capable of handling all of that, and that's the one printer that's used by the rest of City Hall as well. The two concerns with that are, number one, that does tie up the printer for a full business day anytime we do billing, and number two, we don't have a secondary or backup. So if that were to go down on the day we have to print the utility bills, we're out of luck until we can get a repair in. We requested a proposal from the current copy company, Dex Imaging. We determined that adding a second unit is going to run about $89.20 per month, or just over $1,000 per year, and that cost would be split between water and sewer. And there are funds available for this. It's not going to have a huge hit in the budget. So we're basically asking for permission to, or an agreement to sign the addendum, or the new contract rather, I'm sorry. Permission to sign the new contract, which will take our total current lease up from $521.56 per month to $610.76 per month.
That's 1 unit.
That's for all of our copiers combined, yeah. We have one here in Public Works, one in the PD, and then one at City Hall.
Where's it gonna be located? Where are you gonna put it?
In the utility building office.
So have we been pleased with the services of Dex Imaging? And I guess that would be Julie and Tammy that would be mostly involved. Do you think that would be the best company to continue with? So we wouldn't do any price comparison if we're satisfied with their services?
Correct, this is just adding on.
Okay.
I can tell you, I did look at general pricing for other companies and we're in the same ballpark.
Okay.
So the 29,316 is really just the four of them divided by the 4, right? So you're paying like 7,300 a year.
Correct.
And what, I didn't see, maybe I'm missing, this lease, when does the current lease end? And you're adding, is this something, I mean, might be not bad, not reading.
I think it's an additional.
Yeah, it's essentially, I don't know the proper legal terms, but it's essentially ending the current lease and starting a new one with
Okay.
additional equipment. I think we have, I wanna say a year left on the existing contract. Not that much, okay.
Okay. So we'll start a new
Correct.
4 years.
Correct.
Any comments at the table? Good.
I'm good.
Ms. Linda?
Good.
Jim? Okay. Let's move forward.
Understood.
Beach vendor, Chris?
Yes, sir. This has been the cause of quite a bit of consternation here in the city. The bottom line is, as our ordinances currently sit, we don't have any allowable space on the beach to vend. The only allowable spaces are privately owned in front of a currently functioning hospitality business, a bar, hotel, restaurant. The only space in the city that fits in those categories is the space in front of the annex, if there were something there operating. So without that, we have no place for vendors to actually vend on the beach. To further complicate things, if any member of the business is setting foot on the beach, whether it's to set up, bring back, or maintain any equipment, they require a beach vending permit. That vending permit says what section of the beach you're operating on, and I have to decline because we don't have any allowable spaces. Going into this just a little bit, this also touches on our peddler ordinance. For some of the companies that have requested to operate here, they want to be able to essentially bring equipment down to the beach, run it out of a trailer or a vehicle or something, let folks either take it from there or run it down to the beach themselves. Our peddler ordinance requires any vendors peddling to be operating out of an existing business. So for example, parking the trailer in a parking lot or something along those lines. So we really don't have a way right now for me to approve any beach vending permits. The question that we have for the council is, what would you like to do? We do have vendors requesting to be able to do this. I've heard that it does provide a valuable service. I know that we have to balance that with protecting our beaches and protecting the people on the beaches. I'm really glad I'm just the administrator and not the legislator making this decision today. In the packet that I gave you, I have two options. But if the council does not wish to make any changes, the only allowable business would be a beach equipment rental business that operates off the beach and at no time has personnel that visit the beach. The off-beach location must be in general commercial or tourist commercial and have written permission from an existing or established business owner located in those zoning categories. They may not peddle from city or vacant property. If that's the case, one recommendation I would have is to minimally improve the city-owned lots on 37th or the parking lot itself on 98 provide a location for a rental trailer, and then we would have to adjust our peddling ordinance to allow for that. Option 2, if you do want to allow on-beach rental businesses, we'd have to remove the location restrictions of not on city property and or requiring the current hospitality business to be in operation. So if we were to remove those conditions, we could then allow vending in front of El Governor, the former annex, the Driftwood, Toucans, anywhere up and down the beach. So those are the 2 options that I would present to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Everything always comes down to past practice. You know, it's, I guess today we're interpreting the ordinance different than we did yesterday. So knowing that we have probably a handful of vendors, be it 4 or 5, that actually do not vend off the beach, I don't believe that. I guess the one that's maybe the closest to that would be maybe Hector. He brings his jet skis and some other stuff down there. But everybody else is a phone call and delivery. Is that the way everybody understands it right now?
Delivery to the house.
The house or beach.
Or be, yeah, okay.
So we've allowed that for a number of years. A vendor on the beach, I don't think that's ever
No.
been.
That would be just Hector.
Well, it was Hector because he used to have El Governor to do that with.
Yeah, 2 cans.
Yeah, he was El Governor and then Toucans.
Yeah, until, yeah, I mean.
But neither
What
one.
are we, I mean, what's so broken with the way we're currently?
The way the ordinances are written, I can't approve a beach vending permit because there isn't an allowable area.
Well, I don't think we want to.
We can, absolutely, then we have to slightly tweak the upcoming peddler ordinance to allow vending from city property, so they could pull up to like 37th Street. Sir?
Go ahead.
You have people who are delivering stuff to the beach that don't even have a license in Mexico Beach. And they have websites set up, call me and we'll do it. So are we gonna police the beach in a way that every time you see one of those sheds, it's gonna get taken away? I mean, would it not be possibly easier to say we will allow 3, 4, or 5 businesses, however many you decide to do this, once those licenses are filled, there is no more. So there's a finite number you will allow, right? And once you fill that number, that's it. You know, like they used to do with taxis in big cities. You had X number of taxi licenses, and those licenses were not transferable. You know, if you still had that business, you had that business. If you ended that business, then the city was allowed to reissue that license.
I kind of brought that up there when the last vendor was here, and I didn't get much good response on that.
But, I mean, it's about the only way you can do it right now. Sorry, just because after the meeting, I went and did a huge amount of digging, because we picked them up. We had all sorts of nice oak chairs with, you know, umbrella material on them behind us here, you know, belonging to vendors. And I'll guarantee you, I don't know of any of them that had actual licenses in the city.
I mean, it's one thing to rent something and somebody brings it to the street end and it's taken. You know, we're getting into, from what I'm hearing, you know, all of a sudden we're gonna allow beach vending on the beach, and the guy's got this section on the beach and he can set up 25 chairs and rent them. That's not what we don't wanna go, I don't wanna go, I'm sorry. I don't wanna go down that path.
I think for the purposes of today, if the council can just tell me what they would prefer for beach vending, then we can go back through and adjust whatever we need to adjust and come back with that change in ordinance or peddlers or what have you. So if the council says we want to allow people to go to the website or call somebody and have a chair delivered to the beach, we'll figure out a way to make that happen. If the council says, no, we don't want that, we don't want them walking onto the beach or dragging equipment on the beach, we just want them to stop at the end of 37th, we can do that too. We just need that guidance from the council on how you would like that.
What's the difference between a vendor license and a business license in Mexico Beach?
It's kind of a gray area.
Okay, so if we say vending, a vendor license, does that mean they can go on the beach?
As of right now, Mexico Beach has a specific beach vending permit and a separate peddler.
Correct. It's in chapter 114.
Okay, but that doesn't allow them to set up their business on the beach. It allows them just to deliver to the beach?
The beach vending permit is allowing them to operate on the beach itself, or the way it's written, I can pull it up.
Full license that we usually have for vending. Not the peddler, but the vending, we have four, we've had them, well, just a full vending, that's all. Then when hurricane came, I think Hector got his back, had to swap to different locations. But I think now we've got people like Appalachian, just have, anyway, they come, you make a phone call, I want 2 umbrellas and 8 chairs at the end of 8th Street, 36th Street, whatever street, and they take them and send them out.
But is that we're not really, by them taking it, are we allowing, is that what we're saying? We're in essence allowing them to operate on our property?
We probably need to tweak the existing chapter anyway, but there is just a blanket prohibition about no beach vending on any location that is deeded beach to the city.
And I think we'll get that agreement from the council.
So if that doesn't change, then we can tweak the other parts, but from a policy standpoint, if you all are still committed to not doing it on your beach, the beach that's deeded to you, then allow Chris and I to try to tweak the language about deliveries and that sort of thing to businesses that would exist on the beach side, so that the vendor could deliver behind Toucans or whatever. But if you all want to change that to allow on beach deeded to the city, then I would say you probably need to bid out any of those services so that you're sure that you're getting everybody who wants to participate in beach vending and find out what they're willing to do for the city, and you pick the ones that would have the permit. It wouldn't just be a first come, first served deal.
We don't allow but 4 now, 4 vending, and there's 4 places. You can't come to the city, I don't think you can, and get a vending, not unless you already established, not unless you come to the city council. So it's not but 4 now.
Okay, well, the ordinance doesn't say how many there are.
Did you read
Where they're
Chris's
allowed.
law?
It just says where they're allowed.
Okay.
Still is.
That was businesses on the beach.
Correct. But it has to be an operating business essentially. And
The hurricane stopped.
some of those were stopped by the hurricane.
Okay, am I hearing that, Councilor, are we agreeing that we do not want vendors on the beach? Is that correct? Okay, if I'm hearing that, then the next thing is, do we want it to remain the way that it's been, in that you have a vendor, he gets a license from the city to go on and deliver to the beach, the way that it's been?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to rent a paddleboard or something, or the whole thing, this is what we've been doing. They can
Right.
take it and drop it.
Well, I say drop it at the house and not on the beach. They're gonna drag it.
Yeah. And I don't think they drag them down there, from what I've seen. And this is just historically, they pull to the boardwalk or the end of the street and, they do their paperwork. And that's just what I've seen. But apparently there's some other going on.
Yeah, some of the vendors that I've heard from or spoken with will actually take it to the beach for the day trippers basically to use, and then take it back after they're done using it.
Well, we have a rule that leave no trace, so
Correct.
that kind of limits them to leaving stuff just out there.
Correct. But the question then is, do you want to allow, so it sounds like everybody's all good with drop it off at the end of the street. Do you want to allow them to take it to the beach and set it up as well?
I'm good with the way we've been doing it.
Yeah. I've been good with it.
Right, but have a license and
So just,
your business is someplace else.
so just drop it off at the at the beach, but not take it down there and set it up, is my understanding?
I'd say the way they've been doing it is they take it down and they set
So,
it up.
okay.
Yeah, they just can't go and set up somewhere, I mean, I know we're getting over the weeds here, but we still don't want a vendor, so if we say they could go into the end, the call needs to be facilitated for the service.
They're not setting up 10
We're not
chairs on the
setting up
beach.
at the end of a boardwalk and saying, I got 10 chairs for rent. We don't want that.
Understood. If that's
I
the
don't-
consensus.
So they would need to wait for the actual customer to meet them. It's not like we're gonna place 25 chairs on the beach and get here when you can. Is that what we're thinking? Is that the
That's what
way
we're
it
doing.
currently works? Like you're meeting the customer, here's your chair, I'll put it down on the beach for you. And
I hadn't seen nobody, I've seen them just deliver the chairs and the plumbers and set them up and they leave. I haven't really seen anybody meet them. I haven't.
I think what we don't want is for somebody to come and set up 25 chairs at, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then the people get out there whenever. That's what we don't want to see.
I called 4 vendors, maybe 5, and just asked them what they do, and then, I said, have you ever set up like a party or anything else like that? And all of them said that they've never set any more than 6 chairs. That was just input from them.
But I think recently we did have a vendor that came and spoke to the city council. He said he was storing his chairs like in a pod somewhere, but was asking, would we maybe let him store it on the beach in a box? That's something that we do not want.
You're right.
Alright, so I think I have guidance on that. The second part of this is, current ordinance does allow in certain circumstances, ATVs or UTVs on the beach. Do we want to continue to allow that, or say no motorized vehicles on the beach other than city-owned stuff?
Safety and police, that's it, for me. I mean,
Well, like, I don't know, like we allow Hector to take his machine down there and bring the bigger stuff up with it. I mean, it's just always been allowed like that. I don't think it's a blanket that anybody can just take an ATV to the beach. But these ones that are here, I mean, it's just been historical that we've allowed, I mean, if the storm's coming, they're gonna get stuff off the beach, they've been able to get it. They don't go down there and race around and do anything else with the machine.
Are they every morning loading up the ATV and then bringing it to the beach every morning?
They're jet skis I've seen and stuff, they have to get them down there to
So-
a degree, Hector can.
Yeah, we allow it for one, we allow it for all.
Yeah.
So you got ATVs running down the beach, up and down the beach. Hector, you have something, come on up.
I'm making sure you guys know I'm here. You got any questions?
Okay.
So currently, I believe we allow Hector, are you not allowed to keep a small shed or building?
Yeah, we give it a small building and we give some boxes for the chairs and the jet skis right on the edge of the dunes. And we use the ATV to pull the stuff off the beach.
That's behind a
You can,
business.
It's behind the business, it's one of the.
Yeah.
So where do you keep them when you bring them back? Do you keep them the other end of town?
no, in the summertime when we use them, I keep them right there on the beach.
So we're not gonna have somebody running from your restaurant down there down the
Well, in
beach?
the morning, we keep the ATV down at the pizza place because it's the place I can store it, and we drive down on the beach, store it to my location.
Every morning?
Yes.
It's because you can't drive the ATV on the road, so you have to drive the beach.
So if we allow Hector to do that, do we have to allow someone else to do that? If they
To
wanna
make a
come in-
delivery?
What if they wanted to take their chairs or paddleboard or whatever kayaks down to the beach and deliver them with an ATV on a trailer?
Would that not be at your discretion if they can prove a hardship? He can't, he might be a strong man, but he can't pull a jet ski out of the water on a trailer without it, but you can happily carry a handful of 2 or 3 chairs and an umbrella over your shoulder down to the beach.
But if I wanted to deliver 4 kayaks,
One person at either end of a nice day, but you
could I
can't
not
have jet
request
skis.
to pull them on a trailer behind an
The
ATV?
ordinance needs to be objective, so whatever you want, If it's allow an ATV under these circumstances, we need to write it that way. Right now, it just talks about ATVs, must be operated consistent with Florida law, may only be operated within the permitted area, and directly to and from the beach, access approved in the permit holder's application.
He's one of the 4 vendors now. Just remember, we don't really have 4.
Four
There's
locations.
about 4 locations, I mean, but he's one of them.
But in this new process, we don't wanna open up the can. If we allow people to, if we say, hey, you can beach vend, and somebody calls you, go set up chair. By no means can they take an ATV and go set up the chairs.
I guess what I'm asking, Tim, is legally, we can allow one vendor to do this, and if somebody else requested, they wanted to do a jet ski business, they would have to come to the city and request it, and we would have, I don't wanna look like we're just limiting this to one
You gotta be
vendor.
consistent.
We have to be consistent with that. So we would, if someone else came in with that same scenario as Hector's using, we would likely permit it. But we could limit it to somehow in wording to that type of business versus
You sure
allowing
can.
a guy with a trailer and, a bunch of chairs or kayaks or whatever on.
Well, we also can limit the point too.
And the 4, Mr. Smith, that you're talking about actually show up in the editor's note of your code, but they're not part of your actual code, so,
That expired in 2019.
yeah.
Okay, let's just for a minute here, I had a couple people, come on up,
John Harrell, 43 First Street, or as Chris says, first house in Dade County. You told me first. Well, the mayor says it's last. Anyway, why don't you put a time restriction on when they can be in there, like early in the morning and then late in the evening? So during the day when people are visiting the beach, you don't interfere with them. If you're gonna allow Hector to do it, and then another vendor, like you said, that does the same thing, restrict the time. Can't we do that to make it good for them, also good for the people that are going to the beach? It's just a suggestion.
Hector, are you still here?
Yes, sir.
What time do you deliver your, jet skis? What time?
Well, the jet ski, we use the ATV during the day because, we have to go up and down the beach. And, normally we try to be down there by 9 o'clock, between 8 and 9 o'clock. We drive down the beach. And, we use the ATV during the day because the wave runners are very heavy to put
So
them in.
during the day, you're doing it also?
Yeah, but I'm not driving up and down the beach. I just ride on my location.
Oh.
Just keep it there on the location. And I don't think you should open to everybody because some of these people that come deliver chairs, they don't even have the right insurance. They shouldn't be allowed to come down there with an ATV in the middle of the day or whatever time if they don't have the right insurance. The city don't push about the insurance. I got a couple, it's $1 million liability on my ATVs, my 4-wheelers, and everything I drive down there. And the city got a copy of it. And anybody that's allowed should do the same.
A couple good suggestions, by both Hector and John. Putting a time limit on it could be interesting. Making sure they have insurance is another one.
You could also just limit the number of vendors at each location, which would limit you to the 4 that exist currently.
Or you got something?
Yeah, also, when you're looking at this, you also need to look up at what setup time they're going to be down there delivering their chairs. Because they've been down there before the beach rec has in the morning, setting up the chairs and refusing to move them before. So they get down there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, set up their chairs, the beach wrec's over there running, he's having to run all around that and everything else. Especially if you have an event coming up, and I've seen this already.
That's a good point. I know they heard it though.
I work with them. I make sure that when something's up the beach, where they gotta raise their hands.
So, I just had a thought with these other vendors, should we allow them the opportunity to speak to us and give us their input before we make a decision?
Sure we can, yeah. I called, like I said, I called 4 of them, and one other one had mentioned an ATV to put stuff on it. And it was Barefoot Cottage. They said that they wanted to take an ATV to Driftwood, and the owner of Driftwood called Mel, so there could be some activity if we allow it.
But could the just, what we can do is start working on the changes that we have to make. I just wanna make sure I understand what we're saying. Based on what I'm hearing, we want to allow a business such as Hector's on the beach, but only at Toucans, the Annex, Driftwood, and El Governor. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't wanna change it, yes.
Okay. So we're gonna end up with 2 different scenarios. One is beach vending.
Toucans is not private property. That's Mexico Beach.
Correct.
Only the annex is private property.
Correct. So if you,
he's getting permission from the city to do it.
correct.
Okay.
That's the part that will change to
That
allow that
accurate?
on.
No, I get permission from Toucan. I'm not allowing it.
Not in this case. That's city property.
It's not been, as long as I operate behind the commercial property.
That's where we've always allowed them to operate behind the commercial property, one of these.
And that's, we haven't been following the ordinance. That's the bottom line. So if that's what I'm saying, if that's what you want to allow, that's what we'll tweak. The ordinance says they can't. The only allowable location would be the annex if it were in operation.
Which it's not.
Yeah, but you're right, I mean.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's been at
That's-
this table that when after the hurricane, we made some provisions to allow people to get back to it.
And that expired in 2019. So this is, I have no skin in this game. If this is what the council wants, we'll figure out the changes we need to make it happen. I just want to clarify, so I know what changes we're making.
Well, I'd like to clarify with Hector, whose property it's on.
Well, as far as that I know, I'm behind Toucan property. I've been set up for that year.
As far as you know, and as far as I know, you're not. So we need to make sure that legally we know whose property you're on.
Okay. I understand.
Okay.
So when they were allowed to set up behind the Driftwood,
They were on,
City property.
city property.
yeah,
We're not allowed.
we just need to clean it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is, I'm not arguing what we should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying if this is what we want to do, we got to fix.
It's important that we know that we're giving permission, the city is giving permission for Hector, not an individual property owner.
Correct.
I think that's important.
And that's another question that I have.
What if you have more commercial properties located on that side? I know you're talking about just the 4, but if you're gonna have another hotel over there, for instance, would you allow them to have the same kind of access that the current 4 has?
Where consistency comes in.
Correct.
And to further complicate that, do we want to require the vendor to get permission from the business? Or do we as a city simply, us saying, go ahead, rock and roll, do this in front of El Governor, and it doesn't matter what El Governor wants?
No, we've had this, historically had to get, like Hector was told that he was not gonna be able to run at Toucans, there was an issue when he moved, and then they gave him permission
Yes.
after, to say, okay, you come down here during construction and operate.
Yeah, 11406 requires them to get written permission.
Ready permission from the owner of the property to operate behind the commercial property.
And 11405 says the location is not on beach deeded to the city or another public agency.
Bingo.
So, the way it's written currently, they can only set up on private property, which would be really only a couple businesses. There are a couple private properties that extend further, I believe.
Just the annex?
Yeah.
I'll show you right here.
There's nothing in between
Just
12th,
residential.
between 12th and 8th, there's none of that.
So technically, by this statute, Toucans cannot give him permission to set up, they don't
Not to
own
be
the
on
beach property.
City beach, that's correct.
That's currently city beach.
Correct.
So,
That's what we're gonna confirm.
yeah,
I believe the property owner had the right to the property line to the highest tide of with the water. I believe they had the right to that land. That's what it's been for many years.
We will get it all
Yeah.
taken care of and figure it out.
because I think the bottom line is, we're not wanting to allow vendors to set up on the beach. And specifically allow certain vendors to operate, and we'll have to figure out where, but not necessarily on city or state property, but private property. And limit the ATV traffic to just direct movement of heavy equipment like jet skis. And the other vendors to deliver chairs and other equipment on the beach to someone, but not to occupy that space. And to limit those hours so they don't interfere with beach cleanup and raking. And everything is retrieved that evening, there's nothing left overnight. Because that's, in here, there's a discussion about leaving things overnight that needs to be cleaned up also in the current ordinance.
Can leave no trace to take care of that.
Actually, it doesn't.
Pick up.
In this current ordinance, it does say vendors are allowed to leave chairs overnight, and I'm not sure what that means, if it's like permanent, or if it's, they can pick them up the next morning. So I think we need to clean that up too.
Yeah, your leave no trace would be they'd have to pick them up every day.
And I forget where it's at.
Sunset.
Yeah, there's a,
30 minutes forward to the sunset. All these years we've been doing it wrong. Is that what we?
well, you've been doing it the way it should have been done, but the ordinances didn't match.
It come up before, I know 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more than that, and I didn't know of all this.
It's-
That was 19.
Yeah, the carve out for those 4 locations ended at the end of 19.
Chris, do you have enough to draft anything right there?
Yeah, I can start working on it. I have just a couple other questions. So what I'm thinking about doing then is we'll need to set up whatever it is to allow beach delivery of rentals, and then a second to allow jet ski, parasailing, that sort of stuff to come onto the beach. The question that's going to get in the gray area with Hector specifically is you rent chairs as well, correct?
Yeah, we bring chairs too. We set up and we all depends on how many we need, and some of them they stay overnight. And the lease no traces don't apply to vendors. Part of it when we went to court and everything else before.
So I don't know how to say we're only going to allow people to drop off the right number of chairs for that particular, drop off the rental chairs, but allow Hector to have his set up there on the beach. That's a question for the council, how you want to handle that.
I wanna get the answer on the property. Who owns what and what the limits are in the setting. Once we get that, you
Oh.
do your draft, and then we can individually take it up
Okay.
with you individually.
I'm looking at the Bay County Property Appraiser site right now, and I can tell you specifically, the only privately owned beach is the Annex. And then the 3 houses immediately to the west of 8th Street Canal. Everything else is city-owned beach.
You might have to get over the county. Yeah, I wanna get an official
Yep.
opinion. Okay, so, is everybody good with that? We'll have them good and start putting together a draft. We're gonna have to make some decisions based on that.
Yep.
We have to be consistent, or we choose to grandfather something.
Yeah. And Tim, it's section 114-09 that talks about allowing vendors to leave
Right.
boxes and chairs on the
Yeah,
beach.
all of 114 is gonna need to be
Yeah.
revisited.
All right, I'll put something together. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other. We just need to clean up to make sure the ordinances match what we need to do, and what we want to do.
Okay. All right. Citizens' comments? Come on up, man.
I just want to clarify about the street accesses to the beach after the renourishment. I did write the CDC and they told me that none of them would be closed, but I hear that some of them may be closed.
But I can clarify that.
Sure.
So,
I'm sorry, one second. We could share your name for the
I'm
record.
sorry, she knows, Nancy Falk.
so what the CDC briefed the city and on there, I think we're talking to you, Chris, is they're not limiting walkover from the current access points, but they're not gonna make a V shape. You're gonna walk over the top of the dune. That's their plan.
But you can still go
You
at
can still access it, but it's not gonna be, their intent was to have no entrances carved in the dune, so that the dune would be saw all the way across. That's something that Chris and I will work out, because we have emergency access points. And, anyway, that's the plan of the county.
They have to get those answers to those streets, because we have let alone we have a state ordinance, you can't go on dunes. Then we're getting ready to put in a city ordinance that says we're gonna fine people if they walk over them. So it has to be solved.
As long as we designate it as an access point, that
Right.
satisfies.
And that's, I think that it's still an access point, but what's the difference in their plan and maybe what we would like is you have to go over the top of the dune. Eventually you might wear it down a little bit, but there's not gonna be a bulldozed entrance to the beach like you have in many locations now.
All right, thank you.
I wonder, I recently saw a documentary on the Miami Beach restoration, and what they did was to make an opening. They did the fences, like we have them parallel to the water, but they did fences like perpendicular, so that created an ability to be able to have a space without doing the expense of a walkover. So that was quite an interesting concept, in my opinion.
Take a look at that.
Any photos of that, yeah.
Before Gary starts, I want to point out, one of the grants that we're looking at, or we've applied for, is the first phase was to pay for the study of putting in some walkovers that actually go over the dune that are ADA accessible. That's the first grant. And then once that's assessment's done and engineering costing's done, then we were going to identify some locations or location, and then apply for that grant to do the walkover over the dunes, at least in one or two locations, to allow ADA walkover. Because right now, our dunes or our walkovers, they're walkover over part of the beach, but they stop at the foot of the dune, so you still have to walk through the sand.
Yeah, it's moldy mats too, are tying into that.
Right.
Mr. Gary? Yes, sir.
Gary Cox, Powell, Maryland. Basically, you answered my question. I was thinking ADA, so we can be in compliance, because if we don't, we're gonna get hammered with the lawsuits, because we're really pressing ADA now. So that was, you basically answered my question, but why I got to ask it.
Okay. Thank you.
Lisa Logan. Okay, I'm a little slow this morning, so y'all are gonna have to draw me a picture. When it comes to the city walkovers, and they put the new dunes there. Let's take, for instance, 15th Street, because I've been down at 15th Street a lot. So the 15th Street walkover is blocked with the new dune. So you're saying that people can go down the 15th Street walkover and then walk up the sand and across
Over the,
and then just 10-foot drop down on the other side. Because the dune there is about 5 feet tall, then you've got about 10 feet of flatness, and then you've got a good 10-foot drop. So people can go up and over walking, but the city is not going to build the walkway over the dune. Is that what you're saying?
correct.
Okay, and so that's gonna be at every city walkover.
Right now, that's the way that it's planned. They're gonna build a dune 3 miles long.
Right.
And eventually, the same thing we see has happened over years, you're gonna start to see walkways through.
Okay, and you said that there would not be any cut-throughs, like when we had in 2006 or 7, we had an emergency berm built the entire length. But they cut through, and obviously the water rushes in, so we don't, and spreads out behind the dune, so we don't want that, but you're gonna have emergency cut-throughs?
That's the way I understand it. Tim, is that what they're saying?
Yeah, but they're normally in locations where the dune's not gonna be all that high anyway, so it shouldn't have impact. I can't answer what Chris is working with the CDC on there. But the second, so you are correct, Lisa, that will eventually all of the city, and we call them walkovers, they're really not dune walkovers, they're sand walkovers, and they drop you off at the foot of the dune currently, and all the locations that we have walkovers. Now, some of them, like 15th Street, may have some sand pushed back upon because the dune's being developed. The CDC's plan, the county's plan, was to leave those entries as entries, but to walk over the top of the dune, and eventually you would have a pathway there. And we will probably, as a city, end up having to put, like we've done before, the rope railings or rope guides through those to keep people inside those. What we're pursuing as a city is a grant to look at locations that we could actually put a walkover and get a grant to build those wooden walkovers that are ADA compliant, so that at least there'll be some ADA access. We're also working on the Moby mats to put those in some locations, and that's got to be developed. So I believe the county's intent and the state's intent was to have minimal breaks in the dune to prevent water coming through in a high surf or state.
Yeah.
But we have to work out where we can put our emergency entrances. We still need emergency entrances one way or another. And there's the issue with the private walkovers. I didn't realize you could have a rail and they wouldn't cover it. But my understanding was those were going to get covered, or they had to be moved, and then you could go up over the walkway. But the CDC's intent is to have no cuts or minimal cuts in that dune for protection from surf.
Okay, so tell me this, and I'm not trying to be facetious or rude about this, but when this is done by the end of April or May or whatever it is, it's supposed to be done, and we've got this giant berm running 3 miles, where am I, who have difficulty walking, going to get over the dunes? Because I can guarantee you I can't climb up that dune and then down the 10 feet without killing myself. So literally, where would I go to get on the beach?
I got one of the walkways.
Well, and I think, we need to get this built, but I imagine this is gonna be coming before us when it's done, and we're gonna have to make some decisions
Yes.
about building walkovers over the dune.
That's correct.
That's what I'm hearing here. We're gonna have to take it upon ourselves to build the walkover over the dune.
Not only the walkover, but, and that's where.
We gotta get a grant for the ADA too.
Yeah.
But that's where Chris and I will clarify with the county and the CDC and the state. just what we can punch through the dune and where. I don't know if having a solid wall of dune really protects us, or if having a V cut in there like we do now, because in many of the locations, there's no dune, you just walk through it, or walk down to the beach. So I don't know the answer to that, but I thought that was clear to the council when Kimberly briefed. Apparently not. Because it's always been a bone of contention that I know Chris and I have had with the CDC and how this is going about. So we'll get it clarified, because I believe the intent, our intent, is to have a solid berm for safety purposes and environmental purposes, but also figure out how to get emergency vehicles on the beach safely, and to allow access for a large portion of our population which has mobility issues. So how do we do that? And how do we do that as soon as they get done with the beach dune building? And what's our long-term plan for allowing true ADA access? So like you asked us to do, Chris and I will talk to them and we'll figure this, we'll come up with a recommendation, or recommendations for this.
And we'll do that, we'll report back over the walkovers. I mean, obviously over time, it's gonna be naturally made, but it needs to be a solution. And I think they're like 4 foot, aren't they? 4 or 5 foot?
Well, it's over my head and I'm 5'6".
Yeah, well, and I don't believe the dune goes all the way to the canal. I think they're not putting a dune structure all the way to the canal. So let's come back to you and clarify all this so you understand. And then we can go back and make requests. Or I don't know that the CDC can deny us from doing whatever we want to do either. I mean, it's our beach.
Well, let me just say, I'm getting a tremendous number of questions. How do I get over the dunes? And my answer currently is, I don't know, because I can't get over the dunes. So as quickly as you can figure this out, people really are wanting to know, and I'm going to put something on the paper's Facebook page to answer some of these, and I want to get it right, but...
Yeah, wait till you get an answer from the city.
Well, don't sit on yourselves.
Nor should you. All right. Any other questions?
You know, I was thinking about like St. Joe Beach, they have the sand dunes that they put in like 2 or 3 years ago. But look how much those have gone down. And they planted the little seals systematically with a machine. The seals were like that big, and 3 years later, the seals are still that big. So they've lost a lot of the percentage of the sand dunes. So, the beach is a river of moving sand, so we have to keep all that in mind too when we're talking about building walkovers and how things are gonna change. Once again, the thought about maybe the fencing, if we're gonna do the breakthroughs, maybe we should do fencing that's gonna hold the sand in and allow a walk through as well. That would have less effect on the fact that the sand is constantly moving. Just a thought.
All right. Any other citizen comments? Closed citizen comments from the council? Comments?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So, I don't know if the citizens realize that yesterday, the JLAC committee met, and our mayor, finance director, city administrator, and city clerk were asked to come and speak to them and answer some questions. And I just want to read a statement made by Derek Noonan, who was the audit manager for the Florida Auditor General's office when he was presenting the results of the audit. This is verbatim. We didn't see any indications of fraud. If we did see something that looks really questionable, we'll often send a copy of the report to the state attorney or Florida Department of Law Enforcement. In this case, I don't believe we did, and the report is publicly available on our website. So I just want to repeat, because there's been a lot of rumors about this. We didn't see any indications of fraud. So despite what has been said on social media by a political commentator, and they really, and I can tell you, they really dug into this. They went back several years, in some cases, looking at some of the receipts. There's no indication of fraud. Zip. Zero. So please be aware of that, and I'm sure people are going to continue to try and stir things up on Facebook because they just like stirring things up. But there is no fraud. There were some mistakes made, and there's some things that we're cleaning up. And the other thing you should know is that the state auditor's office will come back in no more than 18 months to see how we're doing. And I think the mayor's planning to also hold a meeting sometime in the near future to look at the progress of some of the things we put in place for this.
We did, on the audit, I mean, we made plans internally, and we've met probably 4 or 5 times on the audit, and I'm pressing the staff to address each item individually, and then document it and show it to them. I look at it, we all approve it, and we move forward. They're all solutions to the problems that have been going on, and like I told, I'll tell you, it's pretty intimidating sitting in front of 7 senators and 5 representatives and this huge building, but we had a lot of turnover at that time, and I honestly believe that having the right people in place is where you need to be. If you have an overlap of a person that's leaving, you don't leave a gap in between that time. You have to close that gap to make sure the turnover is done right. And we had several gaps. And my other point was, right, wrong, or indifferent, my opinion only, as a manager, I'm not a government guy, I run businesses, okay? And I think that if you're gonna have an accountant, that accountant needs to be on site. Okay, and I think we ran too long without an accountant not on site. And it just shows me, having Mike here, our financials are really getting very much in order. I mean, you're gonna be surprised. We're gonna be looking every month at our financials versus waiting a quarter or 2 quarters or anything else like that. In fact, I went to Mike the day before yesterday and asked him for something, and that report came out right away. Plus about 5 other questions, and I had the answers to each one of them. So it says a lot having the right people in the right positions, and we just can't allow the gaps. They need to be filled right away. The overall, everyone we're well, I think. Okay. Any other council comments?
I feel like the people that we currently have in place, that we have the ability to move forward.
Okay.
Yes, Tim, you and Julie got something to say? Did that, it's you?
No, sir.
Julie brought a little bit of a southern to the senators at the Capitol.
Tammy did.
Or Tammy did. She said that we got it going on.
It was it was a little intimidating, but it was, and I must say, and I think I can speak on behalf of the city employees, that the audit was very stressful, and I don't think people understand what the employees went through as far as the audit and having to try and find things that, it was a treasure hunt, and trying to do our normal job as well. It was for almost a whole year. So it was other things going on as well. So kudos to the employees of the City of Mexico Beach in City Hall, and January as well in Public Works. We worked our heinies off, and we got it done. And the results we were very, very proud of the results, and it's just minor things that can be fixed.
Good deal, and I'm proud of the city that we're gonna go ahead and get our audit closed on time this year. for the first time, and that's in a long time. It's gonna be a big deal.
Yes, sir.
So we need to get with Moore right away, get that contract squared away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We don't need that gap you were talking about a while ago. We don't
That's
need
right.
that gap here now.
That's right. All right, any other council comments? If not, then mayor comments. I only had two of them. I'd like to, y'all know we have some flood issues, and we ran and we made a list of, work with Tanya, right, a little bit, and we had a list about 5 or 6 things that need to be repaired. And we kind of ran out to town with a group of people, city administrator, that engineer, and a couple other people, just to look at some of the properties and see what was going on. And we did some cutting down in a gully and took care of a problem, opened up a drain. But there was one that was really standing, there was 2 of them that were standing out right at the top of the list. One was over on 4th Street, that you're all familiar with, and the suggestion to run the pipe down that street. And we looked at cost of if we would do it, and Tommy pulled up some costs, if we would do it versus an outside firm doing it. And it looked to me like a bigger task than what we wanted to take on as a city with everything that we have. So with that said, I'd like to see if we can go ahead and go out and get 3 bids so that we can see what this is really gonna cost us, what it looks like. So I'd like to get just a head nod on that, if that's okay to do. And the other one is over on 1st Street. And it's the same thing, a drainage problem. Just that I'd like to get 3 quotes on also. We can take these and add them to a grant or not, but we really need to know the number, what it's gonna cost. And there's a possibility that there's a 0.5% tax that comes into Mexico Beach that really should be spent every year on roads and bridges and things like that. But we don't do that, so we've put away, I guess, over a number of years, quite a bit of money, almost $1 million, right?
Correct.
That we haven't spent on what's been a 0.5% tax. So I'd like to get those quotes at least so that we have them, we can start making some decisions. If we want to move forward, we want to add that to the overall grant that we're working on with ABCOM. If the council's okay with that, I'd like to direct the city administrator to do that.
Is that something we need to put on a future agenda?
What you can do is.
Just getting the bids or quotes, I think it's just giving us a number.
Correct, yeah, you can instruct me to get bids, excuse me, to put it out for bid, and then we have that information at a future meeting. I can say, just ballparking the sort of stuff, we're looking at probably $80,000 to $100,000 for 4th Street. 1st Street's gonna be probably around 10, 15. So just to give you some rough idea of the numbers that we're looking at.
The 4th Street, the water's backing up so bad, it's filling up the guys',
Yeah.
But I will, we'll put it up for bid.
Good?
I don't think you're gonna get it that cheap. Good luck.
Well, that's why we're getting the bid, so we can take a look at it. Any staff comments?
Anything from staff? I'll just say, from that hearing yesterday, I was really encouraged because the questions they were asking were more about turnover at the manager, accountant, clerk level. One of the representatives had concerns about why we don't have policies in place for some of this stuff, because in a typical operation, if we lose somebody in that position, you go to the SOP book, open it up, and you still know how to continue to do the job. So we just let them know that that's what we're in the process of doing. They didn't, I've seen some JLAC hearings that are a little intense, to say the least, and ours was not at all. In fact, the gal setting up for it, Chad would be briefly ahead of time and said, yeah, you guys are, everybody's new, you're figuring this stuff out. So it was very encouraging. I did not get the impression that anybody in that committee was targeting or looking to hammer us for anything.
Chris, I have a question since we're in this administrative report.
Yes, sir.
Was that for just a review, or I thought you were bringing this up at this meeting, is that not?
What, let me pop back open here. What I'm gonna try to do moving forward is just some of the big picture items that we're looking at, some of the big things coming down the pipe, just to let the council and the residents know what's going on. So for example, in there I talked about, well, there's a pretty horribly written paragraph in there about the future growth. My proofreading system failed on that one.
Yeah, if it was just supposed to be in the box for us to discuss, there were some things written in here that I guess I'll need to get with you.
Yeah, if there is something.
Bringing this up at the meeting, and you're not.
No, if there is something you want to discuss, well, certainly that is a discussion item if we need to. But this is just kind of designed to give you a rough idea of what's going on and where we're going.
Well,
But we can discuss.
okay, well, so I'll discuss it here in public. We're currently beginning discussions with Bay County to increase our sewage capacity. Understand. There's a multi-part effort is beginning with canceling any development orders that have not had construction begin that are older than 6 months. We'll then determine the capacity to prepare for a discussion with the county, as well as potentially Parker, Callaway, and Springfield. So, where did that decision come from?
That was mine. So our development orders are only valid for 6 months.
Okay.
That's
our current.
Yep.
That's our ordinance.
That's our ordinance.
That's our ordinance.
Gotcha.
So as part of the bigger discussion
So we're
on.
just gonna cancel, I mean, we're moving forward, or we're just gonna start?
Yeah, it's 6 months, they expire if there's no development.
I understand that part, but the way this is reading is like they're canceled and do they come back? I mean, where we, I mean, I know there's a process, but.
Yeah, according to our ordinance, those are valid for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, they expire. We haven't been following up on that at all. So the new process is going to be send a notification out to them a month ahead of time saying your development license or your development order expires in a month. What are your...
And I don't think they need to be ever ending, you know,
Yeah.
we have to get back to it, but it just was pretty.
Yeah, I can see how that wording would be a little...
Yeah, and we've had a lot of discussions in this room about capacity and
Yep.
things like that. Okay.
But the two aren't, they're two separate issues. You're not combining that far yet.
They do overlap some of the major developments. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do factor into our sewage capacity and they're not going to be developed. I can't. Garrett, can you think of one off the top of your head?
The 15th Street development, Jerry Warren's, where they got the big sand built up. That's one of them. Right when you come off the bridge on 15th Street, that development to your right hand side. I think that's the Ocean Oasis. I want to say it was one or two more.
Yeah. That are not coming to filtration?
Correct.
Well, like the 15th Street property that you're discussing down on the left is on the market. It's been marketed as a multi-unit.
It's talking the one before that, Jason, the one, the big.
Well, yeah, I know that one
Yeah.
too, but we just said the Jerry Warren one, that's the one down on the left. So, rightfully so, we need to start contacting people and.
Yep.
And I understand, it seems like it's.
All we're doing is going by our ordinance. Our ordinance said that if it's carried over 6 months, to drop it off. Right now, we're trying to analyze how much sewer we have, how much water we have, and we're putting a number to all those developments that are not gonna happen. Or may happen, possibility, but what we can do is we can tell them, hey, you're off the list because that's how we run our ordinance, and you come back, we'll put you back on the list.
So what I do want to emphasize though is, when is the next report coming out from the county? Is it May or March?
Concurrency.
Concurrency.
Report. The county, I want to say from us, it would be, I think we need the last one and.
No, what I'm asking you, Garrett, is we're waiting to do our concurrency analysis, finalize it until you get your next report from the county. When is that coming? The next report from the county, the quarterly report? You look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking me, so we don't get.
We were gonna wait to do our concurrency analysis
Right.
for the year until you got the next report from the county that lays out.
Okay. That, the sewer rates, you talking about for the sewer?
Sewer,
rate?
yes.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir, that just came out, this month.
Okay.
So it just came out. Yes.
So what
That's yearly, not quarterly.
what Garrett will be working on next, I understand, is our analysis or estimate of existing requirements, projected requirements, and anything we see possibly in the future. And as part of that, you have been in discussions with the county, Bay County, about their need to start planning, in which they are doing in increasing their sewer capacity in the county, and some options in the future of purchasing which cities may be able or willing to furnish to us, sell to us, pass to us if needed. So my point is, I guess I'm getting slow to it, is we're not just sitting here watching things grow and our sewer capacity decrease. We're working with the county. We're looking at what cities, we're talking to the cities, we might be able to increase it. And we're doing quarterly analysis of our capacity, and Garrett's getting ready to do an annual concurrency report on what the future looks like, or where we're at.
The city administrator is picking up where the last city administrator was. I mean, the conversation was with Bay County that we really can't do anything until we get to about 70 or 80%. We're tracking that to make sure where we're going and where we're at. He's continuing conversations with Bay County and options. So it's just an open forum right now, that's all it is. There's no decision making. We're just making them aware. We don't want to hit them on Monday and say, hey, we need more sewer capacity.
But I think the one important point to note is, up until recently, the county's been analyzing this, they've been watching it. Now they're actually starting to talk about moving forward and what capacity they need to increase and how they're gonna do it. They're actually in those type of discussions.
That's what we're actually meeting with him tomorrow at, I think, 1 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
10:30.
Oh.
10:30, 1 o'clock, same thing. But yeah, so that's why those issues overlap. If we have developments that are past that 6-month period, we need to get them off the books per the ordinance and then allow somebody else to come on so that we can do that planning.
Yeah, just, you see how it reads the first sentence.
Yeah, we're not canceling every development.
Well, but no, not just that, we're canceling it because.
Yeah, yep.
We're trying to find,
Yep, I apologize, that was poorly written.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. A lot of good conversation. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Is it just, one second. There's
Good.
one minute back with the hand up.
Sorry, come on up, sir.
Sorry,
You missed the citizen comments?
Yes, I did. Sorry. First time being one of these. My name's Zach Post. I used to live on 310 Maryland. I work here my whole life. Some of y'all know me, some of y'all don't. When you're talking about having the perfect person in the perfect place, I know that Mr. Tommy was leaving. I just want to put Randy June's name in for that spot. That's all I have.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Mayor, since Ryan is here from, he graces his appearance every now and then, he had an update as well.
Ryan, you got anything to finish?
Come on. That's all right. I don't know, we 5 more people.
We didn't get a second to adjourn, so we're all right.
So we got a good number of things going on. I think I've told you guys previously. We're working on a lot of closeouts on projects. Got 2 more projects that we're sending off to close out now. The stormwater project and another project, which is the design for that. So that's a good move. Finally got the emergency berms project, I think, to a state where they're going to close it out. So we haven't done that officially yet, but moving along on those. So that's been really positive. I think the other things to throw out there are, I know Chris and I have been talking about getting the stormwater moving on that design. I know that's something that FEMA, on their grant, they're going to want to be
seeing us keeping moving. They asked for us for quarterly reports, so we're trying to push on that and get basically the hydraulic reports and everything back from AvCon. The other big thing that happened was we did submit back in, I think it was either the first or second week of January, the appeal for the police and fire station to the state. I think I talked last time I was here about how that process works, that basically when we got the determination memo, we have 2 months to put together an appeal if we want to appeal. So we've gotten through that first phase. Now the state has 2 months from the determination memo deadline to decide if they want to support us and go forward and send on to FEMA to appeal. We were in a call, what was that, yesterday or maybe it was last week? I think it was Friday, I can't remember. But we talked to the state just to kind of check in how that process was going, and got good news. It sounds like they're going to support the appeal and push it on to FEMA. So then that will start FEMA's clock once they do that. The state still is trying to kind of cross some T's and dot some I's on that process. So they haven't submitted it up to FEMA yet, but the plan, it sounds like, for all intents and purposes, is that they're going to do that, and then we'll be waiting on FEMA to see what they have to say about that appeal process. So that's that, and then I know on the pier, we've got kind of two different things going on. One is that I think this was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we heard that it got through on the environmental review side, the other agency side, that it got through the first phase of National Marine Fisheries review. They have a multi-phase process where I guess they have different people looking at the biological opinion on that. So that has moved through 1Q, but it's still with National Marine Fisheries. And then the other piece of it I know is that the city's working towards with their design, with the design consultant, to get the bid package together, to put that out, again, to try to get the costs squared up on the FEMA side. I know we had a couple comments after they put the design team put the package together and sent it over to the city. We looked at it and just had a couple of quick things on the FEMA side, but then I think that one's supposed to be going back to BDI to get that one bid out before too long. To get
With the renourishment and the beach growing, does that have any effect on the pier?
In terms of like how FEMA scopes it, do you mean, or?
Well, it's laid out right now where the water line is. That water line's going to change.
Yeah, I guess that would be a question. I'm not sure because we're not doing the design. That'd be a question maybe ask BDI. I mean, you may want to get them engaged on something that's
So
like on that front.
that has been looked at, and initially, if the pier was built or we were building it like now, it would have a temporary impact until that sand they're putting out corrects itself, washes in. I think there was a pier down at Navarre or further west of here that had the same issue, that there was very shallow water until it eventually, over a period of 6 months to a year, a lot of that beach you're seeing put in will be gone. Yeah, and so we'll still be past the second sandbar with the ramp extension that we're talking about. And then just to make sure, on the biological side, that was a 3-step process, so we've cleared the first step. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. 3-step process. I'm not sure what you're getting.
What they briefed us on was there were three steps in that biological process. Once the person we spoke with turned his in, and there were 3 more, ending with a legal opinion.
Oh yeah. I think that's correct.
And then once that's complete, it still has to go to the Corps of Engineers for the permitting.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to FEMA.
Then the paths start
come
to
together
merge.
with the costing analysis and the bid, and then probably the next hurdle with that is going to be the cost will probably be in excess of what was estimated, so there'll be that discussion to deal with FEMA for the change in cost.
Yeah, and presumptively, when we go out to bid,
we're getting what are like real costs, right? So FEMA tends to accept this when they, sometimes, part of the reason we're in this discussion is because with the cost is that the FEMA's basically lowballing the cost, and they're using, you know, they're basically the way that they cost things out is much lower than what we think.
Right.
I think all of us think is going
But
to be
I
the
think-
actual cost.
I think the message to everybody is, the process is moving forward, not as fast as we want, but it's moving forward. And what we expect, don't expect any issues with the environmental, biological side and the permitting from the Corps. The next big hurdle is going to be the recosting or justification or getting FEMA to approve. And one thing I want to point out, because there's a misunderstanding how the FEMA grants work. This cost is based on the money that was set aside after that hurricane, after Hurricane Michael. It has nothing to do with the fires or all the flooding from North Carolina. We're not competing with the other disasters. This money was set aside, so that is not an issue we have to face.
Correct.
Other than it's 5 years later and that number is probably a quarter of what it's really gonna cost them.
Yeah, but they're also, they're wanting to close out the grants for Michael. And so there's probably more money now that's free because some of those grants didn't come to fruition, you know, the costing. So it doesn't mean we won't get the money. It's just a battle to prove that it costs that much and that, to justify it. I think that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why hopefully going out to bid with it now is now going back to FEMA and saying, listen, we just put this out for bid. This is what the contractors are saying it's gonna cost. How can you argue
Yeah,
that?
and I want to emphasize one thing that the Atkins team, Ryan did, is instead of doing this sequentially, waiting for the environmental and then the cost of the bidding, Ryan recommended that we split those two processes and do them separately so that we're not having to wait longer in this process. So good on Ryan for suggesting that and getting approved for it.
All right, thank you, Ryan, appreciate
I have
that.
one quick question, like with the political atmosphere and possibly ending of FEMA, would that be a concern if that happened?
I mean, this is getting into who knows anything, right? Like I can't tell you for sure if that were to happen. But I mean, I think what I would say is from the standpoint of like when FEMA makes this, you guys have heard me up here say like, hey, this much X amount has been obligated to the city, right? Like that obligated, it means basically like that money has been set aside. It doesn't mean we have it in or the city has it in their pockets or anything like that, right? It just means, hey, this is money that we have set aside as FEMA to go to you guys. Once you spend it, or once you start the work and show us the receipts and all that kind of stuff, then we start pushing the money out to you. So typically my experience has been, in the 15 years that I've been doing this, is like once something gets obligated, I mean, it's obligated. It's hard to pull that back. And to Tim's point, I mean, this is all funds that were for this Michael disaster. So I would say, it's unlikely. It's more likely like that future funding, just in my experiences, is what's kind of at risk there, or much more at risk. But again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know 100% what's going to happen based on something that's happening at the federal level.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
We'll second Ms. Linda's.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, okay.
oh, you're gonna second it?
And then once you do that, you need to officially adjourn. There was some question of whether you were trying to adjourn. If you adjourned, then he shouldn't have been talking. You're not adjourned until now, right?
Okay.